So we were discussing the misinformation campaigns that has been going on against National People's Power or the NPP, and we were trying to go through some of these points that was raised in WhatsApp messages, in social media, and in newspapers, and by certain political parties and politicians as well. And we discussed certain misinformation regarding the economy and the IMF and so on. So let's move on to talk about other aspects of the misinformation campaign, which I think involves violence and governance and judiciary and all of that. So the first point I think everybody is talking about these days especially is that an NPP government will be violent because they have this organized force of retired military men. They will be using that to suppress political opponents, and everybody, especially in the rural areas, in the villages, they'll be taking over power, and there'll be a lot of election violence after the victory of NPP. And they also try to equate this with May 9th, which they said was carried out by JVP, right? So what do you think?
I think NPP has been very straightforward and clear about this. I think no other political party have requested their members to refrain from violence.
True.
Post-election.
Yeah.
So basically the NPP leaders have clearly said that their transition to power will be the most peaceful experience in the political history of this country.
Yeah.
One thing, firstly, they recognize the right of every political party to engage in their politics.
They expressly say that in every rally also.
Every rally. That any opposition supporter has that right. They accept that right, and they also respect the fact that they can carry on their own politics and also agree to safeguard their rights interest post-election.
Yeah.
So basically this is a promise that is rarely heard in the election platform. Basically our system of politics has been towards countering or suppressing the opposition. When we win, we suppress the opposition. So basically
that has been one of the incentives of supporting a certain political party, right?
Now when you look at certain state institutions, the opposition who loses cannot come back to work on the next day. That is the culture that we've been experiencing.
And they will get terminated also.
Yes.
Some people will lose their jobs, some assaulted.
So basically a break from this political culture is the golden promise that the NPP has given with regard to violence and peace. Now regarding the Triforces Collective, basically these are decent gentlemen who have retired from services from the Navy, Army and the Air Force. So basically what they have done is they have joined the democratic framework towards uplifting the standards of the citizens of the country.
Which they have the right to do, right?
Which they have the right to do. And they have joined the democratic path and chosen the democratic path for that. And for that choice, they are expressing through the NPP. Now, because the fact that they have a large sector of people in the Triforces Collective who are working extremely hard towards their political party, exercising their political rights, it is for that reason that this falsity of information is being spread that they are going to spearhead this violence. Now clearly they are not here for violence, they are here for democracy. They are here for the futures of our citizens.
And I mean it's not fair by the military also, right, to portray them in that manner. Of course military has its own set of problems. Maybe they have I don't know, there were problems with the war and so on. I mean nobody's denying that, but just to say that just because you're member of from the armed forces, because you have been in the military, that you are not ever going to be civil and democratic. It's I mean how unfair is that? Because we've had former military men contesting presidential elections. We actually have one contesting this presidential election as well, and we had a president who was glorified during the previous election campaign as somebody who's capable just because they were from the military, and all of a sudden now being ex-military men is a bad thing.
How they perceive people, when they are for their own good, when they do their own work,
then they're good people.
The moment they cross your path and work for another political policy,
yeah,
a political vision, they're vilified.
yeah,
And basically, these people are not a paramilitary group.
yeah.
They are
not
a democratic
armed
group.
Yeah, they are not armed. I mean, we have to say that they are not armed groups. They are actually doing what all of us are doing. They're talking, discussing. They're using rights like freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and these are rights available to all citizens. And they are not gathering arms. They are not trying to do a coup against any government. That's not what they're trying to do. They are part of our society, and I think NPP is actually trying to demilitarize them and bring them into more civil democratic discussions. If you look at some of these forums that they have been organizing and rallies that they have been organizing, it's very critical of the of violence, of war, and what it has done to our communities. So it's definitely not glorifying the job of basically being in armed forces. It doesn't glorify the war, it doesn't glorify violence. So it's just not fair to say that just because you're from the armed forces you cannot be in politics right now, especially when you're trying to change that role and come into civil democratic politics, like you said.
Also, there's another narrative that is being constructed, that is with regard to the judicial power.
Yeah.
Now, this is
again, it's like a parallel system. Yeah.
Where they bring up the narrative that once an NPP government comes into power, judicial power will be exercised by civilians.
Yeah.
Closer to the NPP.
This is all based on this one statement that Lal Kanta made.
Correct.
That judicial power will be devolved into the villages, right? Devolving judicial power is actually not a bad thing. I mean, especially because we come from a legal background, and we are interested in this system of justice system, and the fact that this is getting stigmatized, devolving judicial power into lower courts and making it look like as if people are actually going to take judicial powers into their own hands and exercise authority over everybody else. That's just not fair, because there is enough discussion even in the law about how judicial power can be devolved, and we have a problem of people not being able to access legal remedies just because it's not geographically close to where you live, right? And especially things like human rights, fundamental rights, and even certain appellate court services, right? So it's not accessible to people because it's geographically far away from you.
I think we need to also understand why devolution of judicial power is important.
Yeah.
Firstly, there's the issue of accessibility of justice, just like you said, Lakman.
Yeah.
People have a difficulty of accessing justice due to geographical areas, due to maybe their wealth or their poverty.
I mean, I've seen clients who come and say, can you get a date? Not because I do a lot of labor cases.
Correct.
So we get dates every month, right?
Yes.
Some people don't want to come to courts every month because they would come and say it costs me a lot to come to court
so they want
every
longer
month.
Dates.
Yeah, they want longer dates, which is, I mean, that's not something that we want to do, but that's what clients want to do. They don't want 2 dates in the same month.
That also shows how distant justice is from the ordinary man, which is why devolution is important.
Yeah.
Secondly, about the delays of justice, law delays.
Yeah.
So I think because of these issues, several committees that have been formed towards giving constitutional recommendations since 2010 onwards have always recommended devolution of judicial power to the provinces. I think that is the crux of what had been said in this particular speech made by Lal Kanta, which was clarified subsequently. Now when you look at the NPP manifesto and their legal manifesto available online, that clearly provides for why judicial power, certainly some aspects of judicial power like fundamental rights, ought to be devolved to the provinces. So there will be more accessibility for the people to uphold their rights. So I think that is the important message that needs to be gathered. But the misinformation created is that civilians will exercise judicial power. That is a preposterous statement.
Nobody says that.
That's an absurd statement.
Judges are always going to be exercising judicial power, and it's going to be done through the justice. I mean, it's going to be done through the normal way that it's being done right now, right? No, JVP members or NPP members are not going to be appointed into courts all of a sudden just because NPP comes into power, right? It hasn't happened. And just to think of these things is, it's I think there's a vast amount of prejudice towards what people say, right?
When you look at the 2015 Lal Vijayanayaka Constitutional Committee report, that also provides for the need to devolve fundamental rights jurisdiction to the provinces, and also the evolution of judicial power in general. So that is why it is a commonly debated issue to address the most serious lacunas in law, that is accessibility to justice and the delays of law. So that is the solution that has been agreed upon for decades. That is what they are saying, which has not been implemented all this time.
And there's also this, I mean, moving a little bit away from the judiciary, there's also this idea. We get carried away. I think one of the other allegations that's being made against NPP is that they are anti-Buddhist, which is, I mean, and that another allegation that is being made against NPP is that they're racist. They are anti-Buddhist and racist at the same time for some reason, right? And so, I mean, this is something that I see constantly on TV, that NPP is going to remove Article 9. They are going to do away with the Perahara, and they are going to change the flag also now, of the country, national flag of the country, and they are going to stop the monks from receiving what do you call that? The
seal.
Not seal, the dane basically, right? Arms, and so this is what they have been spreading, that NPP is also that somehow NPP is going to come and intimidate all the Buddhists, and this is not true at all, right? So in the NPP manifesto, in the policy statement, it clearly says they are going to continue with the 2015-2019 constitutional reform process, and in that reform process, removing Article 9 is not discussed, right? And NPP does not have removing Article 9 of the Constitution, which gives prominence to Buddhism. There is no mention of removing this article in the NPP manifesto. And I mean, again, this idea that NPP is, I mean, it's a law also for, like, I mean, it's terrible considering the history that Sri Lanka has had with inter-religious relations and inter-ethnic relations. We've had a 30-year-old war, and then we've had racial riots, religious riots, and we've had devastating campaigns against minority religions in Sri Lanka, right? So considering that, to appeal to the most, the most basic and the most, I don't know, the grotesque of feelings, right? This religious loyalties of, and the damage, considering the damage it has done to this country, especially for opposition parties to be taking it up and trying to build their campaigns on that, it's pretty pathetic, I would say,
Also, I think NPP clearly does not provide for removing Article 9.
Definitely not.
But it provides to safeguarding the rights
of all religions.
Of all other religions.
Yeah.
But what is the narrative being created regarding that by the present political context? Now you see, throughout the history of Sri Lanka, we've always had an insignificant other portrayed before the population in any election. Firstly, it was the Tamils, then it was the Muslims. And we see this trend now also. Now we say misinformation to the effect that Muslims will not be able to grow a beard under the NPP.
Oh my
NPP
God.
government.
That's also being spread.
That's also being spread.
Right.
And also that the NPP,
despite the beard that AKD himself has.
Also has. And also that an NPP government is inherently racist against Muslims. So these are things that have been proven false when you look at recent history. So whenever there has been a racial riot, the NPP leadership, AKD and all other party members have rallied against racism. And not only the Muslims, when you look at the Tamils also. Recently we see a lot of misinformation trying to portray the NPP leadership as someone who's imposing himself on the Tamils.
Yeah.
But I think the Tamil politicians themselves have given a clear
Refuted
answer regarding it.
Yeah.
Have refuted that.
Yeah.
So basically, I think this is the practice of creating a significant other
Yeah.
in any political campaign that has been so.
I think
And this also this time.
Yeah, I think what has happened is we have been so used to this othering of minor ethnicities and religions that we somehow can't settle to this new realm of politics that we are entering.
Correct.
Where we are actually discussing corruption, economic policies. No, we have to go back and make demons out of some ethnic or religious group. And I think we should. I just today I was listening to Andrakumar Dissanayaka saying, if somebody made if somebody was saying harming speech towards religious communities and ethnic communities on our stage, we will actually ask them to leave the stage. We would not even accommodate them on the stage, right?
And that is a bold statement.
That is a bold statement to make. So what he's trying to say is this is not where politics should be done. This is not something, this shouldn't be the way that we go forward in politics in this country, right? Because again, it has been really damaging. We do not want to take that road once again.
And I think it's important that you abandon this significant other culture and be able to go to the south, north and the east and talk about a Sri Lankan national identity. I think that is what we are seeing in the NPP campaign and something we haven't seen in any other political campaign until now.
Definitely, after a long time we are seeing that this discussion about national unity, a very specific slogan against racism. There's a lot of discussion about anti-racism in the NPP policy statement, right? And there's a proposal to establish an anti-discrimination commission, and most of the issues that has been raised by minorities are actually addressed. And even if you look at the NPP platform, you do not see differences, visible differences between ethnic communities condemned. You see that accommodated and included. And I don't see that in any other political party campaign, honestly, especially considering what has been happening to women in this country. There was a time when, let's be honest, 5 years ago we were running a campaign against Muslim women, basically saying, we have to remove their hijabs, they have to remove their burqas, right? But look at the NPP stage now, you see women in burqas and hijabs actually speaking to their communities, to other communities, and that's a good change. So I think we have to, definitely we are not saying that everything is perfect when it comes to race and religion in any political party, right? Not even in NPP, I should say, right? But that doesn't mean we should not use this platform to build towards something better without trying to,
when the platform is progressive.
Exactly, and when we can use the platform without unnecessarily vilifying NPP and trying to push them into a corner, you're racist, you're anti-Buddhist, and this is pressure coming from both sides. On one side you're anti-Buddhist, and one side you're racist. You're against Buddhists and Tamils and Muslims in one go, right? So I think this is also because at a certain level, in every nationality, in every ethnic religious community, traditional politics is being challenged by NPP, right? So
that's what the people want also.
Yeah, that's the change that people want, right? And I think just as much as mainstream political parties in the south are struggling with it, I believe even minority political parties are struggling with that challenge. So either you have to take up those slogans, which I don't see them doing. They are actually trying to, make NPP comfortably whatever they want them to be. So I think kudos to Sumandiran for coming forward and saying that this is not racism, that AKD is definitely not racist.
And a racial attempt has been defeated.
Yeah, I think that and I saw AKD also trying to say, despite Sumandiran coming out and saying that they actually support SJB, he actually thanked Sumandiran for.
Correct.
So I think that's the kind of
the caliber of gentleman politics
that we need to build, right? And I think that's what everybody should be focusing on, not just this racial vitriol and toxic culture that we have been perpetuating over the past few years. I think it has to really end, and hopefully after this election it will be gone forever, and we'll be moving forward towards a better political culture where, we can discuss better things than the flag of the country being removed and Article 9 being removed and all of that. So, yeah.
One more interesting topic that you raised also, Lakmali, that has been taken up by the NPP, which no other political party or leader thought of taking up, gender.
Yeah.
Regarding the issue of gender, how the NPP was able to rally women all across the country.
Yeah.
And the program they presented to them. Basically, we all know that a woman performs a dual role in society, one in her job and one in a household. So what is the idea behind the NPP taking up these women's issues? What is the concept of care economy that they bring out? Can you explain to us? I think that will be a very interesting area that people need to think of, which they have not been able to tarnish also yet. The misinformation has not yet come there.
I think women have very strongly supported NPP over the past few months. So nobody is going to touch that. That's what I feel. Like, you are not going to say that it's anti-women, because who's pro-women then, right? I mean, if you look at the platform, the NPP platform, there's always a woman speaker in every rally.
And that's something to be very proud of.
Yes, and they're bringing more women, young women into politics, and that's really, that's fantastic. And the policies, like you said, the issue of unpaid care work, how women are burdened with the dual role, and how state should be supporting women, and and getting them into more employment opportunities, how to build their entrepreneurship, and how to build the economy. So this is what NPP discusses in their policy. It's extensively discussed.
It's extensively provided in the manifesto
as well. Yeah, and it's given considerable space, and yeah. So yeah, hopefully there won't be any allegations saying it's anti-women. Personally as a woman, I'm not fully satisfied with anything that any political party does for women at this point, but NPP definitely has the most progressive platform for women.
And I think with regard to gender, NPP is also progressive when it comes to LGBT rights.
Yes.
And as much as we are proud about their position on women, we must be prouder on how they take up this bold, controversial issue, and take up the stand that we recognize their rights. And we stand up for their rights. We stand up against them being discriminated.
And mind you, there has been a lot of criticism against them on these issues as well, right? There have been slandering campaigns against NPP for accommodating women, for accommodating LGBTQ rights, for including that in their manifestos, and differently abled people as well.
Correct.
That's specifically addressed. And you see, this year you see every political party talking about differently abled people, because NPP has initiated that. Yeah. So I think instead of trying to make NPP look like some backward political formation that's trying to drag Sri Lanka into the dark ages, we have to see the good things. It's definitely the most progressive political platform at the moment, and it can definitely take Sri Lanka and from political culture to economic reforms, and like you said about women, children, vulnerable communities, minorities, LGBTQ community, everything is included in the manifesto, and it definitely deserves a read. And I think especially certain groups of people who may have been prejudiced against NPP and and JVP, I think should actually I think it's time for you to engage and open your eyes, because I think NPP has changed and they have shown that you can actually change, and I think all of us also should change. That's the political culture, and that's the level of discussion that this country deserves. So let's move away from this mudslinging,
backward political culture.
Yeah, political culture where you just forward messages just because you hate certain people in political parties.
The implication of it is when you do resort to that kind of methods, you attack gender, you attack LGBT rights, and you don't think of the collateral harm
that you do to other people. And especially that's what I was saying about this anti-Buddhist, racist. This has been an extremely, extremely damaging. We don't have to imagine them, right? We have seen what happened in this country. We don't want to recreate those things, and we don't want to we don't want to go back, we want to move forward, and we should be thankful that NPP has created the platform to do it, and hopefully more people will engage and be informed and vote for, even if you vote against them for the right reasons, not for the reasons that you imagine, and that you don't have to fight straw men here. We have to fight. They have changed. They have definitely shown that they can change. It's time for the rest of us to be accommodative of change.
Love.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.